This is Elijah from Module 7. The first question says to review the crisis of control and point out directly establishing a proper balance of centralization and decentralization. And the main question is, what would you do to foster cooperation and develop a cooperative culture? As we know, in a business, cooperation is a very important piece to succeeding. If you don't cooperate with the employees to the managers, things can not be understood throughout the business and that can create people to not understand the goal of the business. So in my workplace, what I would personally do, I would hold workshops every month explaining the goal of the team, and the main purpose of it is to make sure that everyone understands their role their role and their positional value. I would also have each team member explain how they feel about the company and how we can improve, and I would want to hear how they feel about the company in a positive and a negative way to see how we can improve as a company. For question 2, it says to review the problems of the organizational life cycle, looking at a specific company and identify the stage and survival strategy. The company I chose was a company I worked for. I worked for a mechanic, and he basically started up his own business. So as we know, there are stages. The stages are the startup stage, the growth stage, the maturity stage, and the decline stage. I'll explain each one for the mechanic. So the startup stage, he basically just opened up a shop. He had to pay for the building, had to pay for all the expenses, all the tools, and basically he had to advertise himself out to the public. And like usually the first couple months of a business, you don't make any money because you're spending a lot of money in the company. Secondly is the growth stage. That's when people started understanding where he was, who he was as a mechanic, and he got some people to come, and that's how he got some money and everything. The maturity stage is when I'd say for him was about like 3 to 5 years throughout his business. That's when he knew his company was pretty like steady, but it was steadily rising. He understood how to have a customer relationship and how to improve as a business and not decline and not to stay stable, but instead to continue to rise up as a company. And the decline stage, I don't think he has a decline stage yet, but I would say he does have declining seasons. An example for mechanic, when it's the winter time or say like around Christmas, most people don't want to spend any money because they want to spend money on like Christmas gifts, meaning they won't spend any money on their cars, which can definitely hurt him as a company. But a smart business person understands where they might not be needed and instead work on other ways to improve the company while they're down. And for 3, it says, have you ever experienced the stages of the Grinder growth model? So, in order to understand, to know if you experienced it, you first have to understand what the Grinder growth model is. What it basically is a framework that shows the different phases a company goes through to achieve growth and the different types of crises that may occur during those milestones. And that's a quote, and I will definitely cite it in my work. And I feel like it's hard to know when you're going through that, especially as a company, because everything is happening so fast. You're moving day to day. But what you start seeing that when you see like the outcomes of the business. When you see like a business summary, you're like, oh, right here we didn't do so good, or we did really good, and we didn't notice that because everything was happening so quickly. The next question says, this is the last question actually. It says, come up with a fictitious business idea such as a new restaurant or a new invention, and perform a brief SWOT analysis and see if they can pinpoint where the management challenges will be in the early stages. So the company I chose was a sneaker company. For the SWOT, I believe SWOT stands for it means strengths, weaknesses, and I forget what OT means. But the strengths in my sneaker shop would be I would have a bunch of sneakers. I would not only sell sneakers, but I would also sell clothing. I would also sell a bunch of other stuff, not just sneakers. The weakness, I would say, is competing with other local sneaker shops that might be smaller, or a company such as Foot Locker, because they're such a well-known company. It would be hard to compete with a very big organization. but that wouldn't be my main competitor. I feel like the main competitors would be the smaller local sneaker shops, and that's what basically I would try and compete with. But like I said, I would continue I would go against the smaller companies. And okay, so all means opportunities I could have are, I could definitely open up by like William Patterson, where college students might like to buy sneakers. And threats are, like I said, the smaller local businesses. I wouldn't say too much places like Foot Locker or Finish Line, but more like the smaller sneaker companies.